Water Board met on the 19th of September. Lake Maloya continues to spill at between 3 and 2 inches over the spillway as of today. They began pumping water, Cimarron water, to our facility here September 5th. We discussed and approved implementation of the filter plant upgrades. Discussed and approved resolution in support of the pre-implementation of the water supplemental gross receipts tax and bonds to be presented to this commission tonight. Great news, the Department of Finance approved and certified the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget. Kudos to the staff. Also approved the finances for August. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Raton Public Service, Commissioner Giacomo.
Raton Public Service Company Board meeting was held August 23rd and also September 25th. The financial and statistics information was covered by Sandy Chavez, Financial Officer and Assistant Manager for RPS for the month of June 2017. Approval of money transfers were reviewed and approved by the board. RPS General Manager Robert Boo Walton gave his report stating that the customer meter numbers show no significant increases or decreases. They're holding steady. Mr. Walton stated that Unit 4, the new Genmar generator, has been running on a schedule of 7 days on, 7 days off in order to meet warranty requirements for the unit. There have been a few minor problems encountered, but they have been corrected and it has been running, producing electricity for the city of Raton on this limited schedule. The board reviewed and approved RPS Resolution 2017-5, the adoption of fiscal year 2017-18 final municipal budget. RPS received a letter dated August 20th, 2017 from Rick Lopez, Director of the New Mexico Department of Finance, stating that the financial budget for RPS has been approved for fiscal year 2017-18. On Thursday, September 21st, there was an incident with injury reported to RPS that an RPS lineman, S.E. Trujillo, received high voltage shock while working on a runway lighting system at Cruz Field Airport. He was treated at Miners or MCMC and kept in the hospital for 2 days for observation. He is reported as doing fine and is out of the hospital now. That's all I have.
Thank you. Senior Citizens Board, Commissioner Chavez.
No report?
Planning and Zoning Commission, Commissioner Schuster, she's not here, no report. ETZ Zoning Commission, Mayor Pro Tem Sagata.
No report.
Arts and Culture Board, no report. North Central New Mexico Economic Development District, the meeting for September was postponed until October. Library Advisory Board, Commissioner Giacomo.
Arthur Johnson Memorial Library Advisory Board meeting was held on Tuesday, September 19th at 5:30 p.m. Work on the library is nearing completion in the upstairs meeting room. The room is complete except for pending the installation of the new TV and viewing equipment. The new roof has been completed. Interior restoration of the library will not be scheduled until roofing of the 3 other city buildings have been completed. Statistical report for July 2017. Grant circulation totaled 4,869. Monies collected was $611.97. Donations was 0. Fines were $125.14. Copies made was $486.83. There are no memorials. Programs held in the library were 6, attended by 31. Story hours in the library were 4, attended by 174 individuals. Statistical report for August 2017. Grant circulation was 4,436. Monies collected was $2,282.58. $1,645.92 were from donations and the reimbursement of the E-rate for the interest for the internet, phone, and fax. Fines collected were $122.85. Copies made were $443.81. $70 for memorials. There were 8 programs held in the library attended by 46 people. There were 2 story hours attended by 12.
Thank you. ETZ Zoning Authority, no report. Financial Advisory Board, Commissioner Chavez.
The Financial Advisory Board met on the 21st of September, discussed and reviewed the August 17 finances for approval, the submission to the commission this meeting.
Approval of the September 12th regular commission meeting minutes.
Madam Mayor, found nothing, one little tiny thing that's been corrected, and we have nothing more. I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes for the September 12th regular commission meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Public hearing ordinance number 996, solid waste ordinance, replacing and repealing all existing ordinance pertaining to solid waste. Mr. Berry?
Mayor and Commission, if I could preface our comments from the public, if we have any tonight, I would just review the proposed action here. We have been reviewing the solid waste ordinance for the purpose of trying to address a number of problems that we have in the operation of the solid waste enterprise, which is covered under our existing ordinance, which is listed under Chapter 50 of our Code of Ordinance. There were numerous things that we would like to address throughout the ordinance, so instead of a revision to the ordinance, what we are proposing to the commission is that we would repeal the existing ordinance under Chapter 50 and replace it in its entirety. Now, it contains a lot of the same elements of the old ordinance, but we did have extensive revisions throughout the ordinance. And so just to cover in general what those would be, and not specifically, but the old ordinance addressed the landfill operation quite a bit, and it was really designed around the operation of a local landfill. And so since we operate a transfer station and there are certain operational differences, we've eliminated any reference to a transfer station, and how we regulate solid waste now is really designed around transfer to another landfill. And so generally what we do, we've talked about this before, but we send a lot of our bulky items to the landfill at Wagon Mound, excuse me. But our municipal solid waste, that's the daily stuff that you throw in the dumpster, generally goes to Waste Management Landfill, Fountain, Colorado. And we've had issues with things like construction and demolition debris and other types of waste. So we've attempted to address that in the ordinance. Now, we also had conflicts in the old ordinance about what residents could do as far as disposing of items, generally leaving them in the street and the alley on private property. And there were some conflicting terms which made enforcement of that tough to do. So in the present ordinance, that will clarify that, and I would tell you, Mayor, that it would simply be a violation of the ordinance to place any items in the alley or in the street, and with the idea that somebody will come along and pick that up later. That would be a violation of the ordinance. Now, property owners that do not have the ability to transport waste, such as bulky wastes, they will be able to call the city, and for a nominal charge, we'll make an arrangement to have that picked up. Other people, the expectation is that those items will be delivered to the transfer station. And the thinking is that for ratepayers that are within the city that are on our system, there's really no charge to take items to the transfer station. Now, for people that may not be ratepayers of our system, there would likely be a charge out there. But let's try to regulate some of the uncontrolled dumping that we have. We get a lot of complaints on items, furniture and mattresses and white goods and tree limbs and those kind of things being deposited in the alley, a lot of times near the dumpster, around the dumpster, over the dumpster, in the street. And the effort is to try to provide some enforcement and regulation of that activity. It's a lot easier if people have that loaded up, if they'll just bring it to the transfer station, generally we'll accept it at no cost than it is to dump it somewhere, and then we'll have to send a crew out to pick that up. And so that is in the ordinance. Rates are really not changed from what we see currently. We have cleaned up some language regarding rates, but generally rates have not changed. Where there would be a change is for two items, commercial tire disposal. There will be a change, and we anticipate a change. And for construction and demolition debris that's generated by, on a contractor level basis. But what the ordinance provides for, you have a rate schedule for monthly rates that is essentially identical to the existing ordinance, and it does say that for special solid waste needs, there would be a resolution drafted, brought to the commission, and those would be identified. And the reason for that is we would anticipate that those special rates would change from time to time. And instead of going through the extended effort of revising an ordinance, it's something that the commission could consider once a year. And we could evaluate what that effect is having, what we want to accomplish with that, and you would enact a resolution on a yearly basis. That's the thought. So we anticipate there will be a change in fees for those things, but it'll be identified in the resolution, which we would bring to the commission during the October meetings and move along with this ordinance for your action. And I'll hold up there, Mayor, and answer any questions. We have not received any input in the way of phone calls or emails or letters to bring to the commission regarding this.
Okay. Any of you have any questions?
Mine was gonna be on the tires, but he answered it.
Okay, all right. This is a public hearing, so if anyone has any comments, now is your time to speak. All right. Seeing none, we'll go on with event report, Gate City Music Festival, Raton Main Street.
Mayor, Commissioners, in your packets, you have a report of our event that the city lodgers tax helps support. And we had a very good weekend. I think everybody enjoyed themselves. We had approximately 1,500 in attendance throughout the weekend. We did have a bigger crowd at the Schuler on Sunday night than we did last year. And Saturday night dance was well attended. We had vendors. Susie Vargas was a very gracious entertainer with her meet and greet. And we had total income of about 43,000, and 22,000 of that, of course, was lodgers tax money. We did raise sponsorship money of about close to 15,000, 14,950. And then, of course, our ticket sales, we got 30% of the brewery's sales and things like that. So bottom line, we should have seed money of about 7,500 for next year. So we will be able to ask for less from lodgers taxes, which is our goal every year, to ask for less and less money. So we'll have about that much to start with for next year. And the surveys were very complimentary. We try to ask questions, where you came from. As you'll see, there were a lot of people from out of town, different areas. A lot of them did stay in hotels. We do ask how much they thought they spent during the weekend. And even locals said they spent about $8,200 and travelers about $11,000. So that was, $19,000 spent for the weekend. So I think that's good for gross receipts and lodgers tax and all that sort of thing. So any questions?
No, very good job.
Okay, thank you.
Commission, Mayor and Commission, I would just state that I think 3 years ago, I had talked to a lot of local groups and partners and challenged them to do something new and beneficial in Raton. And Main Street is one that really stepped up and formed the Gate City Music Festival. We said at the time it'll probably take about 5 years to really ramp this up to where we want to be. I think that there are probably some additional improvements that we could talk about as we go along, but I've just really been impressed by the work that Main Street and a lot of other volunteers that are not necessarily a part of Main Street have put into this. But the ladies here and others in that group have really worked hard to bring this thing as far as it's been, and I think that we're on track to really have a signature event after a 5-year period, and hopefully they can keep the effort going and do even better in these coming years. But they answered the challenge, and I really want to say thanks for that.
Thank you.
Deliberate and act on Resolution 2017-45, August financial report.
Mayor and Commission, I'm going to give you a corrected gross receipts tax summary report too. I noticed the columns for this fiscal year, we're only adding up 2 months worth, so I'll have Tricia take one and pass those down also. So for the month of August, you'll see the summary that I just gave you before the meeting, our general fund summary. Our ending cash as of August 31st was $1,846,905, and then less our 1/12th reserve leaves an available cash of $1,449,116. Looking at the gross receipts for the month of September, we did receive another good check, not quite as good as the year before, but some of the projects and things that we've had this summer weren't as large as, say, the multimodal, and the South Interchange was well underway last summer as well. But despite that, still a good check. It was close to $460,000. Now, year-to-date, you'll see the comparison that we usually look at is under the water category. Gross receipts year-to-date is actually seen a decrease of over 5% year-to-date. But because we did budget a 3% decrease for this year, when we look at our overall budget comparison year-to-date, we're actually 5% ahead of where we should be. But keep in mind, and I say this every month, that come November, December, that'll start to taper off and then won't pick up again probably till March and April. So overall, I like to see us at about a 4 to 5% increase by November, because then that carries us through the winter months. So I think we're exactly right where we need to be. I also did include in your packet this month a copy of the lodgers tax revenues. I think it's the last page of the financial report. Lodgers tax has done quite well, and I think you'll see that we've had a steady increase for the past 5 years. And the lodgers tax collected last fiscal year compared to 5 years ago was almost $100,000 more. So I think events such as the Gate City, and of course a lot of the events that the NRA hosts throughout the summer, we're seeing just an increase in travelers to our communities. So that's good for lodgers tax, and I think this table that we've provided you demonstrates that. Other than that, I'm in the process of closing out the fiscal year records, and the auditors will be here next week. So they'll arrive on Monday and they'll be here all week, and then they'll return again the first week or second week of November. So we should be able to wrap everything up on that second week. So busy time of year for us. Is there any questions regarding any of the financial reports that we've given you this evening?
Thank you.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve Resolution 2017-45, approval of the August 31st, 2017 financial report.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2017-45, August financial report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Deliberate and act on Resolution 2017-46, approval of fiscal year 2017 fixed capital assets inventory.
Mayor and Commission, we are still gathering up some information to put into this capital asset inventory, and so we would request that you postpone action on this until the next meeting.
Okay. I will move the postponement of action on Resolution 2017-46 until next meeting, is that what you said?
Next meeting.
Next meeting.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second
Let's wake up.
to postpone action on Resolution 2017-46. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Deliberate and act on Resolution 2017-47, support of the Tiger 9 discretionary grant application. Mr. Berry?
Mayor and Commission, we had Commissioner Fernandez from the Colfax County Commission attend our meeting last time, and he had reported that Colfax County has taken the lead and together in conjunction with all of our partners, which are municipality and county governments along the Southwest Chief line in Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico, to get an application filed for the Tiger 9 grant cycle. And so the request is that the city of Raton participate in that application as an active participant. And also in this resolution, we would support that in the amount of $12,500, which would go towards match of a $25 million application. Now, the $12,500 would only apply if the application were successful. So Colfax County is working on application of that grant. The application would be due on October 16th. And they would apply for the maximum amount of $25 million. Now, in the past, the city of Raton has participated along with partners in Colorado and Kansas in two previous successful applications. One application that was not successful, that was in 2016. But in 2014, Garden City, Kansas was the lead applicant, and they were successful in a Tiger Grant award of $12,469 and some change. And then in 2015, La Junta, Colorado was the lead agency, the applicant, and they were successful in the amount of $15,200 and I can't read my own writing, but $218,000, I think, and some change. Raton, City of Raton participated in both of those in the amount of $12,500, and the partners are again submitting that recommendation, that application. I think that it's very beneficial. It needs to be a New Mexico entity on the application, I think, this time, because we've had a Kansas entity and a Colorado entity. So Colfax County, and I want to say thank you to them for stepping up, stepping forward, and taking on that effort. But the request in front of you would be to commit funding in the amount of $12,500 and support the application, Mayor.
Okay. Questions?
We'll make a motion to approve resolution 2017-47, support of the Tiger 9 discretionary grant.
Second.
Your resolution, does it say City of Lamar? I don't know if we need to change
It does
that.
say City of Lamar.
Maybe we need to say Colfax County.
Right, so if we could make that approval contingent upon that substitution, County of Colfax, New Mexico.
Go ahead and remake the motion.
Sorry about that.
Amend it.
Amend it. I'll amend my motion to include,
Correction.
Colfax County, or
Yep.
in lieu of City of Lamar.
I'll second that amendment.
Okay. First, we have to take the resolution, I guess you withdrew it, is that right? Commissioner Giacomo?
Amended it
You amended it.
to include. Is that good enough?
I think we'll have to withdraw the first one.
Okay.
But I'm going to go ahead with we have a motion and a second to act on Resolution 2017-47, support of the Tiger 9 discretionary grant application with the correction of County of Colfax, New Mexico instead of City of Lamar. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Giacomo?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sagada?
Yes.
Mayor Mance?
Yes. Motion passes. Deliberate and act on Resolution 2017-48, re-implementation of the water supplement, gross receipts, tax, and bonds. Mr. Berry.
Mayor and Commission, you have a resolution in front of you. It comes after a recommendation from the Raton Water Board as well as the Financial Advisory Committee, who have considered the contents of the resolution. I could jump into what the resolution says, but what I'd rather do is call Mr. Campbell from the Water Department up and let him detail for you the action, the proposed action here.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Mayor, Commission, it's been a long ways getting to this, but actually what we're approaching, the end of 2018 will be the 1 cent tax will expire as the bonds are paid off on the Cimarron line. Through the history of this tax, it has accomplished a whole lot, north, south, east, west, throughout the city, on the reclaim project, the expansion of the filter plant, but more than anything else is the Cimarron system bonds that were done in the early 1980s. As this act shows, the first vote was in September of 1980. That system has really changed as far as, or the water utility side of it, Raton's history and its future. As we turn around and have supplemented it, the track fire issue, it was actually our supplemental supply during that period of time. In the 2000s and earlier, it's actually run as many as 9 months a year when the Sugar Eat watershed didn't deliver any water supply. So it's actually been a godsend as to what we've accomplished and been able to provide ample water to the public. This issue right now is what we've got before us would be, this resolution is the first step, because this would actually then require an ordinance, which we'd be working with Tax and Rev on, is prior to even the election, just to place that on the ballot, which is essentially the same process they went through back then. Then if the public did approve this, then it would actually be a bonding ordinance after that, prior to doing a project. The baseline project we're looking at is actually going to be an upgrade of the Cimarron system, which is showing its 35 years of use. You've got the original electric controls out there and original pumps, original equipment, and in a lot of ways it's actually really starting to show its age. It still is a functional system. We're actually running on it right now as we speak, because it is our supply during, even in times when the lake is spilling, during when Maloya is going through turnover. For the last 15 years, we'll actually switch sources, because the manganese problem, which is Raton's history of colored water, is to switch sources and get off of that, especially on years like this when the turnover is really bad. So we actually stay off it. It also is assisted. We've got a filter plant project, which is partially funded by some grant funds, but it'll also have future payments from the water utility on that, to where it actually touches everybody. And the one issue to remember is by the 1 cent gross receipts tax, what it's accomplished for the public is we've actually had the traveling public help subsidize some of our bills, which actually is completely fair, because at that same time, they require the size of our system based on those summertime peak usages throughout town. And as those Texas plates come through town, they're actually helping to subsidize us a little bit. I could say that I'm a past Texan, but after 26 years. But this, with the water board consideration and the concurrence of the financial committee, was actually to turn around, based on where we're at right now, is to lower that to a 3/4 cent, to where we actually reduce our gross receipts tax and still be able to do this baseline project and continue with what we've accomplished in the past, and continue those goals and the quality system we have into the future, even during Raton's current economic struggles and everything else, to try to turn around and maintain a competitive rate, but at the same time, give the public actually a cut in that GRT, is what was proposed from that side. And actually, this is just the first step, as I discussed, because we will actually have an ordinance. We're working with Tax and Rev closely on this. There's not a lot of other communities that have done this issue, so we actually will continue to work through them. But as it says on here, that's actually that first step. This ballot issue would be up to the public at the March election, and would have those two, to approve the bonds that we would actually do for this baseline project and to approve that gross receipts tax. Would require both of those issues to pass. So even as we move forward with this, it's going to require a vote of the public. And I would answer any questions.
When was the old bond paid off?
The old
I
bond
assume
will
it
be
was
paid off the end of 2018.
It isn't paid off.
Yep, it'll be the last payment will be in December of 2018.
And how much are you gonna bond for the new
What we're actually looking at, this is a bonding of $7 million.
7 million?
And that would actually be to go through, as the baseline project, going through all the Cimarron sites, replacing pumps and equipment, which actually would give us a system that would work with today's uses, but it also brings it to the current time. You're actually looking at the controls and everything else out there, our original equipment. We've done a lot of maintenance out there at the same time, but as the sites, the structure would stay the same, the pipeline would stay the same, but what you would be looking at is most of your electrical and mechanical components in each site would be replaced. And the goal is to be ready for the next 20 to 30 years. At that same time, it has actually been a critical piece of our infrastructure. The Cimarron pipeline is what actually brought me to town in 1991.
Mr. Campbell, the pipeline, is it steel pipe?
No, it is actually, portions of it are ductile iron, and then portions of it are AC pipe. It's this concrete pipe. We actually turn around, it has a coating inside. It's served us quite well through the period of time. All the crossings in critical locations where it goes from the Vermeo River, different places like that, any low water areas, and quite a few areas through town are actually in ductile iron. And we've actually turned around, and that, as you go into each pump station, it is all welded steel flange pipe inside the pump station. Because of the varying pressures, because you're looking at 46 miles of pipeline and 3 booster stations, which can actually operate in a 2-pump mode, which is approximately 2.5 million gallons a day, or in a 1-pump mode, which actually goes to a little over 1 million gallons a day. Each of those pump stations brings water to town through that and has a surge tank, because you're actually dealing with quite a bit of pressure as you make the last lift at the pump station outside of town. Right here on the south end of town, you're dealing with about 170 PSI, pounds per square inch, where it lifts the final lift to the filter plant. All of those have surge tanks. All those, the air compressors, the pumps would all be upgraded, and the goal is for the next 35 years. Similar to any other town battling aging infrastructure, some of what we're looking at is the expected life on any asset like that that's a pumping system, a filter plant, or a wastewater treatment plant from EPA is about a 30-year life. That's what they address on their bonding issues. We've recently done a project at rebuilt the sewer plant approximately 10 years ago. The water treatment plant we're currently doing an upgrade there. The Cimarron system is really starting to show its age, and by the time we get to doing this issue, considering it's 1984, this would probably be a 2019, 2020 project if the public were to make that decision. You're actually looking at a 35-year-old system at that point.
And how long will this be in effect? If it's passed.
At that point, it would actually be three-quarter cent, the same as what we're doing right now. It would be a 40-year issue, just the same, which is actually from the federal side. At the same time we were doing this Braceline project, just like we're doing the filter plant and like they did on the Cimarron, we would actually approach New Mexico Finance Authority and USDA and try to get whatever grant funds were available, similar to what we've actually done on the wastewater treatment plant and on the water treatment plant.
Okay, so it would be 40 years. And the bond would be for, would that also be for
Yes.
40 years?
It'd be just like this. And
Okay.
One other last question would be, what is the alternative if the public votes this down?
the alternative would be similar to a lot of the struggles that other utilities go through. We would be then doing everything through rates. Currently, right now, we treat surface water and we're anywhere in the range from 25 to 35% below state average. That is because our capital projects are supplemented by this. That would be an issue. It's even addressed in the franchise that would come to this commission to turn around and try to stay of all compliance issues, would have a direct effect on their rates. At the same time, it would also turn around and really would be a big push would be any legislative issue. Utility projects would have to really move to the forefront on anything we undertook as far as that. As you can see on a lot of other municipalities, out of 103 municipalities in the state, utility issues are pretty much at the forefront. We would fall in that same line and have to really carefully do our infrastructure projects. We've done a lot of projects with this that would have been really difficult to undertake. The one I actually was one of, that changed the way we look at town to a degree is right around 99, 2000. It was thanks to the 1 cent that we actually replaced the line north to south under 2nd Street throughout town as part of that DOT project. In 95, it expanded the filter plant. And the one that will always be the biggest issue is that is actually what gave us the opportunity to get in there after the track fire and immediately able to respond to that situation without having to try to chase other funding opportunities.
Exactly.
And I would also say part of the same goal is a good cooperative effort between the city and the fire department is that has actually also made an ISO 2 rating possible, is having that funding opportunity.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Get ready to do a lot of talking.
Yes, sir.
We thank you for your presence.
Thank you.
Make a motion to approve resolution 20-1748, re-implementation of the water surplus, gross receipts tax and bond.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept Resolution 2017-48, re-implementation of the water supplement, gross receipts tax, and bonds. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Giacomo,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Segata,
Yes.
Mayor Matz.
Yes, motion passes. City managers report.
Thank you, Mayor. On September 21st, I attended the State Armory Board meeting along with Mayor Pro Tem Segata. The national discussion at that meeting, the National Guard has continued their abatement of the lead issue in the building. They have cleaned the building for the 4th time. I think we talked about that in an earlier meeting, and they're awaiting testing. And because they have some confidence that the building will be, the lead problem will be abated, and they can proceed into the conveyance, they asked if the city would be amenable to continuing under the current lease agreement on a month-to-month basis. We responded that yes, that would be acceptable to the city of Raton. The State Armory Board meets every 3 months, and so we're in hopes that by the time they schedule their next meeting, the building will be clear and we can go back and talk about the conveyance of the building to the city of Raton. This morning I attended the pre-construction meeting for our airport projects. That consists of the construction of Taxiway Delta and the reconstruction of Taxiway Alpha. Northern Mountain Constructors, Inc. Is the contractor. We had awarded contracts to them earlier at an earlier meeting on both projects. Work is scheduled to begin within 10 days from now, and it's scheduled to be completed by the end of the calendar year. And that will happen if we have a cooperative weather situation and the work proceeds along. There's always a possibility that if the weather turns bad, we would have to take a winter shutdown, and then that would put us into warm weather again, probably next May or next June. But we do hope to complete that. So that work will be underway pretty soon. I just have one more thing, Mayor. We did receive a certificate from New Mexico Environment Department for the operation of the community kitchen. That's something that we've been working on for several months now, and a key to obtaining the grant funds from rural development that now will be available to proceed along with additional improvements to the kitchen. That's all I have, Mayor.
Great, thank you. Is there anything else to come before this commission? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.